In the quiet streets of Camden Square, London, a black plaque now rests against a brick wall. It reads, Amy Jade Winehouse, 1983 to 2011. Flowers still appear here, more than a decade later. Small tributes to a woman whose voice changed modern music and whose silence shocked the world. It's been years since Amy Winehouse died in her home. Years since the autopsy confirmed alcohol poisoning, and the coroner called it death by misadventure. But the deeper question remains. How did a voice so powerful, so distinct, so full of soul, end up silenced by the very fame it created? To answer that, we must go back, not to the Grammys, not to her rise, but to the night her world truly ended in front of thousands of people. June 18th, 2011, Belgrade, Serbia. The footage begins shakily, captured on a phone from the crowd. Amy walks onto the stage, wearing a green dress. Her hair, the signature beehive, slightly disheveled. The crowd cheers, but something's off. Her eyes are unfocused. She sways slightly. The band waits for a cue that never comes. She grips the microphone, but no sound follows. Then, a slurred mumble, a confused laugh. Moments later, she turns her back to the audience. "This isn't Amy," one fan was heard saying. She looks lost. For nearly 90 minutes, the show faltered between silence and chaos. She forgot lyrics. She missed beats. At one point, she left the stage mid-song. Her band tried to continue, unsure what to do. According to Serbia's defense minister Dragan Satanovac, her performance was a huge shame and disappointment. It wasn't just a bad night. It was a global humiliation. By morning, headlines read, Amy Winehouse booed offstage. Amy Jade Winehouse was born on September 14, 1983, in Southgate, North London, a working-class neighborhood steeped in jazz and warmth. Her father, Mitch Winehouse, was a cab driver who loved Sinatra. Her mother, Janice, was a pharmacist who quietly worried about Amy's emotional volatility. Music was in her bloodline. By age 12, Amy could mimic Ella Fitzgerald's phrasing and Billie Holiday's tone. She wasn't just talented, she was raw. Her school reports describe her as brilliant but uncontrollable. At 16, she was expelled from the Sylvia Young Theatre School for not applying herself. But her teachers knew something else. Amy had a voice that couldn't be contained by any institution. By 19, she signed her first record deal. And in 2003, Frank was released, a debut album of smoky jazz, witty lyrics, and heartbreak that critics adored. It was honest, sometimes brutally so. In one early interview, she said, "I write songs about stuff I can't get over. It's not about being famous. It's about surviving myself." When Back to Black dropped in 2006, everything changed. Produced by Mark Ronson, the record turned her private pain into public art. Tracks like Rehab, Tears Dry on Her Own, and Love is a Losing Game became anthems for a generation that heard defiance and despair in equal measure. But the very song that defined her career, Rehab, would become the cruel prophecy of her life. "They tried to make me go to rehab. I said, no, no, no." Behind that hook was truth. Amy's team, her family, and doctors had begged her to seek help. She refused. She said she didn't need rehab, that she could handle it. Success came fast. Too fast. 5 Grammys in one night. Front page headlines. A new voice for British soul. But with fame came intrusion, relentless, invasive, and merciless. The paparazzi began following her every move. They captured her bleeding after fights, stumbling drunk, her body wasting away. Her pain became tabloid currency. As one British journalist later admitted, "We didn't just report on her downfall, we participated in it." In 2005, Amy met Blake Fielder-Civil, a man whose name would soon be synonymous with her tragedy. He was charming, troubled, and already deep into hard drugs. Their relationship was volatile, passionate, destructive, and fueled by addiction. Within a year, Amy had gone from a jazz prodigy to a tabloid obsession. Her management struggled to control her. She missed rehearsals, collapsed before shows, and at times disappeared entirely. Friends noticed a change, the weight loss, the erratic mood swings, the self-harm scars. According to her friend and stylist Alex Foden, she started to lose herself. The Amy I knew was slipping away, and there was nothing anyone could do. Her father, Mitch recalled later in his memoir, Amy, My Daughter. She was either sober and funny or lost and unreachable. There was no middle ground anymore. By 2008, Amy was a global icon, but her personal life had collapsed. Blake was in prison. Her addictions deepened. Her performances grew unpredictable. One night, she appeared on stage at Glastonbury and forgot half the lyrics to Valerie. The crowd sang them for her. It was as if the world had begun to carry her voice for her because she no longer could. Despite the chaos, she kept recording, promising fans she was working on something new. But insiders knew she wasn't. The studio sessions were sporadic, her voice unsteady. Her producer, Mark Ronson, later said, "I didn't know how to help her. She was brilliant, but she was breaking." In early 2011, Amy tried again. She checked into the Priory Clinic in London, one of Britain's most prestigious rehab centers. For a while, it seemed to help. Her doctor, Dr. Christina Ramit, later testified that Amy was making progress, but had not accepted the full extent of her problem. When she was released, Amy promised she'd stay sober. She even planned a comeback tour, a string of shows across Europe. Her management had doubts, but she insisted, "I'm ready now." The tour began in Belgrade. The Serbian crowd waited for hours under a humid night sky. Amy's arrival was delayed. When she finally appeared, it was clear something was terribly wrong. Eyewitnesses said she was disoriented. At times, she leaned on her guitars for balance. She slurred words, mumbled through songs, and forgot where she was. One concert-goer told the BBC, "It felt like watching someone drown in slow motion." The audience grew restless. Boos erupted. She tried to smile, but it faded quickly. After several failed attempts to continue, she dropped her microphone, raised her hands weakly to the band, and walked off stage. That night, her management announced the rest of the tour was canceled. Amy Winehouse is withdrawing from all scheduled performances to focus on recovery. But recovery never came. After Belgrade, Amy returned to London. She stopped performing, rarely left her Camden home. Neighbors describe her as quiet, withdrawn, and fragile. Her security guard, Andrew Morris, noticed the changes. She was sober for weeks, then relapsed. She drank again, heavily. On July 22nd, he said she spent the evening watching YouTube videos of her performances, laughing, then crying. He left her around 2 a.m. When he returned the next morning, she was unresponsive. Paramedics pronounced her dead at the scene. She was 27. The official inquest found her blood alcohol level was 416 milligrams per 100 milliliters, more than 5 times the legal limit for driving. Coroner Suzanne Greenaway *** concluded, death by misadventure. She voluntarily consumed alcohol and took the consequence as such. In other words, an accidental overdose of alcohol. But for many, Amy's death didn't begin that night. It began years earlier. In the glare of fame, the hunger of addiction and the silence of neglect. As her father later said, she wasn't killed by one drink. She was killed by everything that came with it. After Belgrade, Amy Winehouse was alive, but she was no longer living. Behind the black iron gates of her Camden home, she disappeared from the public eye. Paparazzi, who once stalked her night and day, now camped outside a house where nothing moved. To the world, Amy's silence looked like retreat. To those close to her, it looked like surrender. According to her doctor, Dr. Christina Ramit, Amy didn't see herself as an addict. She saw herself as someone who could stop, if she wanted to. But that belief that she could control her addiction became her undoing. Amy's friends say everything began to unravel after she met Blake Fieldercivil in 2005. He was 23, a music video runner, street-smart, magnetic, and deeply unstable. Their connection was instant and combustible. They bonded over tattoos, 1960s soul, and late nights in Camden bars. But soon, the relationship turned toxic, marked by volatility, jealousy, and drugs. In interviews, Blake later admitted, "I introduced her to heroin, crack cocaine, and self-destruction. At first, Amy resisted. Then she followed. Soon, the girl who once sang in jazz clubs for fun was shooting heroin with her boyfriend in hotel rooms. Their love was inseparable from their addiction. Each fueled the other. It was like watching two people trying to save each other while they both drowned, said close friend and singer Tyler James. As Amy's music career soared, so did the press frenzy. The British tabloids discovered that her chaos sold more papers than her records. Every stumble, every fight, every bruise was published with cruel fascination. Headlines read, "Wasted Winehouse," "Amy's Boozy Meltdown," "Trainwreck Star in Camden Bender." Outside her home, photographers waited day and night. Some shouted insults to provoke a reaction. Others offered alcohol to get a better shot. In 2008, she was filmed wandering Camden barefoot, looking disoriented and bruised. The footage went viral overnight. For many, it was a moment the public stopped seeing her as a person and started seeing her as entertainment. Even seasoned journalists expressed regret later. Piers Morgan wrote in 2011, "The media hounded Amy Winehouse to death. We treated her pain like performance art." Amy's father, Mitch, and mother, Janice, tried repeatedly to get her help. She entered rehab clinics across the UK and abroad, from London's Priory to facilities in Antigua and St. Lucia. Each time, she lasted days, sometimes hours, according to Mitch. She would check herself in, then walk out the next morning saying, "I'm fine, Dad. Stop worrying." In 2008, her management team staged a full-scale intervention at her flat. They found her surrounded by bottles and cigarette burns. She laughed it off. When asked if she wanted help, she reportedly said, "I'm not finished yet." It was a cruel honesty of addiction. She knew it was killing her, but she couldn't let it go. By late 2008, Amy's body was deteriorating. Years of alcohol, hard drugs, and eating disorders left her frail. Weighing less than 100 pounds, her face was drawn. Her voice, once powerful, began to weaken. Medical reports later revealed traces of emphysema, heart arrhythmia, and severe dehydration. She was just 25. Her mother later said, "When I hugged her, it felt like I was holding a child. She was disappearing in front of me." Despite everything, Amy continued to insist she was fine. Her humor, her wit, her charm, all remained, even as her body failed. She joked to friends, "I'm like Marilyn, but with better hair." Behind that joke was a grim truth. Amy Winehouse was already part of a tragic pattern. Artists who burn out before 30, consumed by fame and addiction. When Amy died, she became another name in a haunting list. Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain, all dead at 27. The media called it the 27 Club. But in truth, it wasn't a mystery. It was a mirror. Each one had been broken by the same forces: genius, pressure, and loneliness. Amy had once joked about it herself. In a 2008 interview, she said, "I don't want to join that stupid club. I just want to sing." She didn't know how close she already was. When Blake was arrested in 2008 for assault and perverting justice, Amy's world collapsed. She wrote him dozens of letters while he was in prison, pages of devotion, apology, and despair. "I can't breathe without you," she wrote in one. "You're my anchor. Don't forget me." She visited him regularly, even when advised not to. After each visit, she would relapse. Her management pleaded with her to focus on her health. She refused, telling them, "He's the only one who understands me." When Blake was finally released, they briefly reunited, but the relationship imploded within weeks. He filed for divorce in 2009. Amy never fully recovered. By 2009, Amy was alternating between sobriety and relapse. She moved to St. Lucia, where she claimed to be writing new music and healing. Locals describe her as friendly but unpredictable. She would drink heavily one day, perform beautifully the next. Her team flew in repeatedly to check on her. She avoided their calls. Back in London, tabloids published photos of her stumbling out of bars barefoot, mascara streaked. Every relapse became a headline. The pressure to release a new album mounted. Mark Ronson, her producer, said publicly that she was not ready yet. Amy, angry at the comment, lashed out. But privately, she agreed. She hadn't recorded a single finished track since Back to Black. The creative well had dried, drowned by dependency. In 2010, Amy told The Times, "I stopped drinking for a bit, then I started again. It's just who I am. I'm trying to sort myself out." Her family hoped she would. She seemed stronger for brief periods, performing small private gigs and staying sober for weeks. But every time she tried to rebuild, fame dragged her back down. She couldn't leave her home without being photographed. She couldn't go to a cafe without being heckled. Even when she was sober, the world refused to believe it. As her mother later said, it was like watching her fight a war against something she couldn't see, and the enemy was everywhere. In the spring of 2011, Amy's management announced her first European tour in years. Behind closed doors, many objected. Her health was unstable, her sobriety uncertain. But Amy insisted. She told her team, "I can't hide forever. I need to sing again." The tour included 12 dates, starting in Belgrade. Her band rehearsed in London. Amy showed up late, slurring, forgetting lines. Musical director Dale Davis warned management that she wasn't ready, but contractual obligations and public pressure won. The tour was confirmed. June 18th, 2011, Belgrade, the night that ended it all. The reaction was immediate and merciless. Clips of her staggering performance spread across YouTube and news outlets. Comedians mocked her. Commentators called her washed up. Within 24 hours, every concert on the tour was canceled. Her management issued a statement. Amy is withdrawing from all scheduled performances. She needs time to recover. But in private, Amy was devastated. She told her security guard, "They hate me. They think I'm a joke." According to Mitch Winehouse, she stopped answering calls. She shut herself inside her Camden home, away from everyone. In the final weeks, Amy barely left her house. She read, wrote, and listened to old jazz records. Her friend said she was trying, but her body was exhausted. Security guard Andrew Morris was one of the last to see her alive. He described her as happy but fragile. The night before her death, she watched a YouTube video of her goddaughter Dionne Bromfield performing. She clapped, laughed, and said, "That's my girl." Hours later, she drank vodka alone. It was the relapse that would end her life. Addiction doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, telling its victim they're fine, that one more drink won't matter. For Amy Winehouse, that whisper became a lullaby she never woke from. She was 27, a millionaire, a Grammy winner, a global icon, and yet alone. Her doctor, her father, her friends, all had tried to save her. But fame had already written her final verse. In the next and final part, we look at the aftermath, the investigation, the autopsy, and how Amy Winehouse became both a warning and a legend. Friday, July 22nd, 2011, Camden Square, North London, 11:30 p.m. Security guard Andrew Morris sits in the kitchen of Amy Winehouse's home. He's been working for her for nearly 2 years. He knows her moods, her rhythms. Tonight, she seems lighter. She's been sober for weeks. They sit together, watch television, and talk about music. Amy opens her laptop and plays old clips of herself performing. She smiles, laughs, and says quietly, "I can't believe that's me." It's a strange mix, joy and regret. At around 2 a.m., she tells Morris she's going to bed. He hears her singing softly upstairs, fragments of "Someone to Watch Over Me." It will be the last sound she ever makes. The next morning is quiet. The housekeeper arrives first, followed by Morris. Amy hasn't come downstairs. He calls her name. No answer. He knocks. Still nothing. At 10 a.m., he opens the bedroom door. She's lying on the bed, one hand on her pillow, her face calm, her skin cold. He calls emergency services. Paramedics arrive within minutes. At 10:25 a.m., Amy Jade Winehouse is pronounced dead. Age, 27. The police arrive quickly. No drugs are found. No needles. No paraphernalia. Just empty vodka bottles on the floor. The house shows no signs of struggle. Detectives from the Metropolitan Police Service begin a routine inquiry. Toxicology tests are ordered. Her body is taken to St. Pancras Mortuary, where the post-mortem will be performed. At the same time, outside the house, news breaks. Within an hour, hundreds of fans and reporters gather behind police tape. Bouquets, photos, and handwritten notes begin to pile against the walls of Camden Square. By nightfall, the entire street is covered in flowers. On July 25, 2011, the coroner's office releases preliminary findings. No illegal drugs were detected in her system, but her blood alcohol level is 416 milligrams per 100 milliliters, more than 5 times the legal limit for driving. Coroner Suzanne Greenaway delivers her verdict: death by misadventure. She voluntarily consumed alcohol and took the consequences of such. In layman's terms, accidental alcohol poisoning. Her body simply stopped functioning. Dr. Christina Romit, Amy's physician, testifies that the singer had been abstinent for weeks but relapsed in the final days. She said she didn't know why she started drinking again. She expressed guilt and then laughter. It was a coping mechanism. The relapse was fatal. When the news reached Amy's parents, Mitch and Janice, they were shattered but not surprised. For years, they'd lived in fear of the call that eventually came. Mitch later told the BBC, "We were waiting for it, and yet when it came, it still broke us." You don't prepare for something like that. At Amy's funeral, held on July 26th, over 300 mourners attended. Family, friends, and artists who loved her. Among them was Mark Ronson, who said quietly, "She was my sister in soul." Tony Bennett, who had recorded a duet with Amy just months earlier, issued a statement. She was an artist of immense emotional depth. We had a moment in the studio that I'll never forget. She was pure jazz. As tributes poured in, so did the analysis and the guilt. Headlines that once mocked her now praised her genius. The same tabloids that had hunted her now mourned her, but many fans didn't forgive. To them, the press had blood on its hands. The relentless coverage, the ridicule, the stalking, all of it had pushed a fragile woman closer to the edge. In one editorial, The Guardian wrote, "We created the demand for her destruction. We photographed it, sold it, and called it entertainment." It was a moment of collective reckoning, brief but real. In the months following her death, conspiracy theories spread online. Claims of suicide, relapse into hard drugs, or foul play. The investigation found none of it. Toxicology confirmed no heroin, cocaine, or opiates, just alcohol in lethal quantity. The official report from the Camden Coroner's Court stated, there is no evidence of deliberate harm. The deceased consumed alcohol after a period of abstinence, resulting in accidental poisoning. Even her doctor, Dr. Romit, emphasized Amy was not suicidal. She was optimistic, planning her future and excited to record again. She had spoken about starting a family. She'd ordered new recording equipment for her home studio. Her relapse was not intent. It was impulse. From the moment Amy left the Belgrade stage to the morning she was found dead, exactly 83 hours of recorded silence exist in her professional archive. No studio sessions, no interviews, no calls, just quiet. In that silence lies the heart of her story, a void that fame, family, and fortune could not fill. In those final days, she wasn't surrounded by paparazzi or fans. She was surrounded by the very thing she feared most, her own thoughts. In the months that followed, Amy's unfinished recordings were compiled into the posthumous album Linus, Hidden Treasures. Critics called it a ghost in vinyl form, a haunting reminder of what might have been. Her family established the Amy Winehouse Foundation, dedicated to helping young people struggling with addiction. Her father said, "If we can save one person, Amy's death won't be in vain." The foundation went on to fund treatment programs and support centers across the UK. In 2015, the documentary Amy by Asa Kapadia reignited public interest in her story. It won an Academy Award, but divided her family. Mitch Winehouse called it misleading. Others saw it as the most honest portrait of her life ever captured. Regardless of opinion, It reminded the world of the real Amy, the artist, not the headline. Over the years, artists across the world have paid tribute. Adele called her the reason I picked up a microphone. Lady Gaga said she paved the way for women who didn't fit the mold. And Tony Bennett, reflecting years later, said, she was the truest jazz singer I ever met. She had the soul of 100 years inside her. Her influence never faded. Even today, her voice echoes in every artist who refuses to conform, who writes the truth, no matter how painful. Amy's story isn't unique, and that's what makes it tragic. The same fame that celebrates talent often destroys it. The machinery of celebrity doesn't pause for healing. It profits from collapse. She once said, I'm not a girl trying to be a role model. I just make music. But she became one, not for her choices, but for her consequences. Behind every public downfall lies a system that rewards a fall more than a rise. Today, her Camden home remains a quiet memorial. Fans still leave lipstick notes on the brick wall. The plaque still glints faintly under the London rain. Inside, her old record player remains, needle lifted, song unfinished. Amy Winehouse's life wasn't defined by her addiction, but by her defiance. She turned pain into melody, heartbreak into poetry, and vulnerability into art. Her voice could fill a room, Tony Bennett said, but she couldn't fill the silence around her. Fame gave her a microphone. Addiction took her breath, and silence became her final song. Amy Winehouse, gone at 27, remembered forever.